Overhead, a telltale sign. Just hours after Moscow signed an agreement with Kyiv to allow essential grain shipments to leave Odessa, the key Black Sea port came under fire. Residents fearing for their lives, and plumes of smoke clearly visible across the city. The Ukrainian military says 2 Russian Kalibr cruise missiles hit buildings at the port and that its air defences brought down 2 others.
No significant damage was caused to the port infrastructure. The pump station was hit, it caught fire and the fire was taken out.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has called the attack, quote, a spit in the face of Turkey and the United Nations, which helped broker the shipping agreement. While the president has condemned it,
this after Turkey and the UN said yesterday that they know how to negotiate with Russia and ensure security, a green corridor for the export of Ukrainian grain. And not even 24 hours had passed before the grain terminals, the territory of Odessa and the port were struck.
But Russia was quick to deny the attack to Turkey, who helped broker the deal. Less than 24 hours had passed since UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres praised the deal to open Ukrainian ports to commercial food exports as a beacon of hope, a deal to clear the way for the shipment of millions of tons of Ukrainian grain and some Russian exports of grain and fertilizer held up by the war. Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of wheat, corn and sunflower oil. But Russia's invasion and blockade of its ports halted shipments, a hold-up that has exposed countries around the world, especially in Africa and the Middle East, to the threat of a food crisis.
What's the price of rebuilding Ukraine and who are going to be the real winners? 30 million people around the world went hungry in 2021, and that number is rising. Why is the world moving backwards as it tries to eliminate hunger and malnutrition? The crisis is getting deeper. Why have people lost confidence in banks and the economy? Need a positive business case for investing in unstable, conflict-ridden places. They'd be looking for a functioning state with working institutions able to give sustainable investment. Investors often have skills and experiences that can support governments shattered by fragility and conflict. There would need to be opportunities for public-private partnerships to kickstart growth and work together. Citizens and local businesses must be part of the plans. And backers from outside can help foster transparent and efficient money management practices. Well, joining us from Stockholm is Torbjörn Beck.
For the Ukrainian government, and I think this will be key to this. I also think we have to remember that Ukraine is a democratic country that I think has become much more united in this war. So I think there will be a much more strong sense of common purpose and direction in the whole country compared to some of the cases you just mentioned, where it was much more fractionalized in terms of the domestic politics. In that sense, I think Ukraine has better hopes of making this a successful rebuilding process.
One of the things
specific companies that we want to support. I mean, there's a long history of talking about untied aid, for example, where we do not support our individual countries from, let's say, Sweden or the UK or wherever the country money is coming from. So I think this will also be important here. So the international community needs to do its homework on governance and anti-corruption, as well as the Ukrainian side. Very long legal processes to make a transfer of those assets to Ukraine. So in terms of time horizon, I'm not sure when that money could be made available to Ukraine, but it's going to take a lot of legal processing, I'm sure.
Part of the conflict has seen a lot of damage done to small and medium businesses within Ukraine, and as is commonly said, small and medium businesses are often a driving force for any countries.
Something for them to miss out on, but I mean, it's also going to depend on what kind of skills they have in those businesses. So maybe part of the solution will be retraining some of the people that have been working in other sectors in the past to be part of the reconstruction process.
In 2011, Syria was able to feed itself. But years of war and now a severe drought has made this nation a net importer of wheat.
The country or regime-held areas.
The rise in global prices sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine is threatening food supplies to many people in Syria. The country is among the 10 most food insecure nations in the world. 12 million people struggle to get enough food. Many of them live in the opposition-controlled north.
We have limited incomes, and yet we have to rely on expensive imported wheat because much of the land in this region is mountainous. We can't grow much wheat.
And lands where wheat can be grown are not accessible. Vast areas were set on fire by government forces during the conflict, and irrigation channels were destroyed. And even though there is now less violence, front lines still exist.
We are close to the regime positions. Many people can't reach their land because it is dangerous.
Humanitarian organizations, as well as the local authorities, are helping farmers to produce more food. But it's costly to plant crops, so is transporting the harvest due to high fuel prices. Fuel is also needed to pump groundwater to make up for what is being described as Syria's worst drought in 70 years. In the opposition-held area in the north, production won't be enough.
This year, 30,000 hectares were cultivated, but the low rainfall and high production costs hurt farmers. A ton of wheat costs $450. We will have to import more than 30,000 tons this year.
The average annual amount of wheat production before the war was 3.7 million tons. This declined to 1.8 million tons between 2015 and 2019. Harvests are shrinking, and farmers are fighting to survive. And with more than half of Syria's people already hungry, the agricultural crisis couldn't come at a worse time.
We're in Ukraine. A big one also is climate extremes, climate variability, extreme heat, flooding, storms. This extreme climate weather is also creating havoc in terms of production prices, and that's a big driver in terms of food insecurity and hunger. And then the third one, which is actually more growing in prominence, is the economic slowdowns and shocks, whether it's caused by the COVID pandemic and the measures put in place, which disrupts supply chains, people lose their incomes. So these economic shocks really create a big problem for people to access food. So those are the three big drivers. And then
nearly reaching 192% in June. And Zimbabwe's dollar fast losing its value. Investing in cattle has become a safer option for some people here than the local currency, an investment they can see and trust.
They obviously choose how many units they want to invest in. It's all Zimbabwe dollar related investment. There's 13,000 units available for investment. 1 unit is equal to 100 kgs of live cattle.
The expectation is that the price, the value of the cattle, appreciates in time, unlike Zimbabwe's dollar. And if clients want to get paid out, their investments are valued and they get their cash back. For people in Zimbabwe and other African nations, cattle, there are risks. Animals can get sick and die from drought and diseases, but there are also ways to increase their potential.
When they drop their offerings, or that they give